Hey guys, Lucky Ghost here, and today we're going to be going over one of my most popular builds, the solo Stamina Nightblade. This build is popular because it does a ton of damage, it lives that dual wield Nightblade life, and while sometimes on a dual wield build you can feel pretty vulnerable, not on this one. You feel very tanky. I made a couple of changes to it for Blackwood that are going to make it do more damage and be more tanky. This is the strongest version of this build yet. I had a blast taking it through vateshraan hallows, set a record time on this character running through there with this new build, and I've never felt safer while doing it than on this setup. So what did we do differently? Let's talk about everything that you need to know to make up this build, such as race, mundus, attributes, consumables, gear, skills, rotation, passives, and champion points. This build is phenomenal for solo content, and it's amazing for group content if you just take the Ring of the Pale order off and put on a full monster set. So let's dig in and see how it works. First, the race. For race, you can't go wrong with Khajiit or Dark Elf, followed right behind by Orc, Wood Elf, and Redguard. Any one of these is going to be a fantastic option, with Khajiit and Dark Elf putting out the most damage, followed very closely behind by Orc. For the Mundus, we're going to take Lover while soloing for the extra penetration, and when we're doing group content with other people, we're going to put on Shadow for the extra crit damage. As for our attributes, we're going to put all 64 points into stamina, and for our consumables, we're going to be running Lavafoot Soup for the extra stamina and stamina sustain, and we're going to run Essence of Stamina potions for easy content, and slot those really nice Essence of Weapon Power potions whenever you're doing something difficult. Those things are going to give you 20% increased weapon damage, increased crit chance, and improved sustain. All right, now let's talk about the gear. As for the helmet, we're going to go with Slime Craw. This provides more crit chance than any other one-piece item in the game. We're using this because we're going to have to put our 5th piece of Zogvin on the shoulder due to the fact that we're using one of our ring slots to wear the Ring of the Pale order. If you want to run this build in group content, no sweat, just go ahead and put your 5th piece of Zogvin right here on the ring finger and then run a full monster set such as Slime Craw, or if you're capable of running Vet DLC dungeons, my favorite thing to do is put Grundwolf, one-piece Grundwolf on the shoulder. So you got 2 one-piece crit sets for even more crit damage. The reason we're going with Zogvin is Stamina Tunes are having a tough time hitting pen cap right now. This set provides an incredible amount of crit chance, and it also provides 1470 crit penetration, and then the 5 piece provides a ton more crit, and it gives us minor force, freeing up a bar spot. Now we don't have to manage our own minor force, we just get it all the time as long as we're remembering to light attack between abilities. We're going to pair with the Zogvin Briar, or if you have access to it, Relican is an excellent option. If you don't have Relican, Briar is fantastic. It can be found in Rothgar. It's very easy to get. You can also buy Briar at guild traders. So either one of those sets is going to be fine. Your single target damage is going to be a little bit better with Relican. However, as for the weapons, I went with 1 dagger and 1 mace. This way we have even more penetration. And then on the back bar, we're going to go with Maelstrom Perfected Bow. I really like running a bow on the back bar because it allows us to keep our Relican stacks even when we have to step away from the enemy. The Maelstrom Bow works really well with Endless Hail to create a nice large AoE dot that does a ton of damage to everything that's within inside of it, which is another thing I really enjoy about the Maelstrom Bow. So that's our gear. What about our skills? Front bar, we're going to be going with Deadly Cloak. Deadly Cloak does a couple of things for us. One, it's going to give us major evasion, which is going to reduce AoE damage by 20%. That's a lot of reduced damage there, which is part of why this character feels so incredibly tanky while we're on it. And every 1 second, this thing's going to release shrapnel, dealing tons of damage to enemies nearby. So it's an AoE damage ability, and it makes us take less damage. One of the changes I made this run is I switched out Biting Strikes for Surprise Attack. We don't get the life back that we used to get with Biting Strikes, but we do get Major Resolve, which is going to increase our resistances by 6,000 every time we use this ability. So with all the life we've already got coming back in with Ring of the Pale order, this is going to cause us to take significantly less damage, and I found myself feeling even safer than when I had the extra health from Biting Strikes coming in because I was taking so much less damage. If you're looking at the tooltip saying, hey, there's nowhere on that ability that says it gives Major Resolve, well, Major Resolve's actually coming from one of the passives right here. It's Shadow Barrier. It says casting a shadow ability grants you Major Resolve for 6 seconds, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 6,000. Well, since we're using this as our spammable, we cast it at least once every 6 seconds while we're in combat. So that means we have 100% uptime on Major Resolve thanks to this ability. As for the third ability, there's a couple of ways you can go with your execute. One is you could go ahead and use Killer's Blade, which is the class execute for the Stamina Nightblade. However, it is so fun to spin to win. This skill feels so satisfying, and whenever we want to do a ton of AoE damage, we can drop our AoE dots and then start up our whirling blades and just melt large packs of enemies. It's such a satisfying skill, and the little bit of extra damage we might be able to pull out with the Killer's Blade is heavily outweighed for me by the fact that this is an execute and it's an AoE execute. So this is hitting everything while Killer's Blade only hits one thing. The fourth ability on the front bar is Blood Craze. This is a nice dot, but it also throws a burst heal at the end of it. It's going to expire, giving us 8,000 health over the duration. And the fifth ability on the back bar is kind of the soul of the Nightblade. Both the mag and the stamblade are going to be using their morph of this ability. It's called Relentless Focus for the stamblade. Every time you light attack, you get an extra stack, which is going to increase your critical damage and healing by 2% up to 5 times. So this is going to give you 10% increased crit damage. And then once you have 5 stacks of it, you're going to press the button again, which is going to release an arrow dealing 16,000. That's unbuffed. It's much higher than that when you're buffed. Damage, right? One press of the button and you're going to do 20, 30, 40,000 damage just by pushing this button when you get to 5 stacks. So it's very important that you use this every time you get to 5 stacks, which means you're going to use this ability like every 6th or 7th ability or so. If you can help it, you're going to want to fire this ability off right after your ultimate, because your ultimate is going to make this take 20% increased damage. If you forget to use your Relentless Focus, that's okay. This buff lasts 60 seconds, so try to keep it up at all times, because at worst, you're going to get that 10% increased crit damage, which is actually really effective in execute. So once the enemy gets below 25%, you're going to let this sit at 5 stacks. You're not going to activate it anymore. You're going to leave it at 5 stacks, and you're going to use your execute ability instead, so that your execute is doing 10% increase. That's going to do more damage for you than reactivating this beyond 25% would. Incapacitating Strike is one of my favorite ultimates in the game because of how much it does for you. It's going to be doing multiple different things. One, when you activate it, it's going to do a ton of damage on the enemy right up front. It's going to do 14,000 damage unbuffed. In combat, it's going to do way more than that. And it's going to cause the enemy to take 20% more damage for the next 6 seconds. So you're going to want to lay down all your dots, make sure your Relentless Focus is ready to fire. Then you're going to activate your ultimate, and then you're going to proc your Relentless Focus, and then go into your spammable surprise attack as much as you can until one of your dots starts falling off. But that should get you through pretty much that entire 6 seconds, allowing you to really capitalize on that 6 seconds of increased damage. But that's not all that Incapacitating Strike does. If you have more than 120 ultimate, it's going to stun the enemy for 3 seconds. Very often you will have more than 120 ultimate because you get 120 ultimate so fast on this character. You'll notice that the ultimate only costs 70, so you should use this ultimate liberally. Every time it's available, use it. It's very much an ultimate that is not meant to be hoarded. It's an ultimate that's meant to be used. So anytime there's a thick mob or a boss, activate this thing. Fire it off as often as you can. Get in the habit of using it often. It's really going to amplify your damage. Is that all it does? No, wait, there's more. While slotted, you gain Reeve, which restores 100 magicka and stamina when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack on an enemy with a negative effect on them. Pretty much every enemy you attack is going to have a negative effect on them because of you. So this means you're always going to be getting 100 magicka and stamina when you deal damage with light and heavy attacks, which is going to be amazing for your sustain. Not only that, but just slotting abilities from this skill line right here, Assassin, is going to increase your crit chance because of pressure points. So the more Assassin abilities we can get on the front bar, the better. Right now we've got 2 of them, so we've got 876 crit chance bonus, which is going to be plenty for this build. On the back bar, we've got Endless Hail. Endless Hail is a fantastic AoE dot. It does a ton of damage in a large area, and when combined with the Maelstrom bow, it does more damage every tick. So every tick that happens does more damage than the tick before it, which means the final few ticks of Endless Hail are doing an insane amount of damage. And so for this reason, it's very important that you let Endless Hail expire all the way, because the last ticks are the ones that are doing the most damage. Never reapply Endless Hail early. The second ability on the back bar is Razor Caltrops. Razor Caltrops is a great ability now, and it's been buffed in Blackwood, so it does even more damage with Blackwood. And while it's doing great AoE damage, it's slowing enemies that are within it by 50%, which makes it nice and easy to kind of move around in there and melt them all down while they're just trying to get up to you so they can smack you. It's also going to apply Major Breach to all the enemies that are caught within, causing you to do significantly more damage, really helping out with the penetration. This skill is so amazing, and it's getting better in Blackwood. I really look forward to using it more. The third ability on the back bar is Resolving Vigor. This is our burst heal. This is what we come and use when we feel like we're just not putting out enough damage with our Ring of the Pale Order on to get enough life to keep ourselves alive, and we're nervous. Just switch to the back bar, pop your Resolving Vigor, do a dodge roll, and then start laying down the damage on your enemy. You should be fine after this. The fourth ability on the back bar, Consuming Trap. I played around with a couple of abilities on the back bar while I was going through this run, and while you're watching the run here, you'll see that for the first couple of fights, I had a different ability here, Twisting Path, which is a great AoE dot that you can put here, and it was working really well. However, I also noticed that my sustain was less than perfect. So what I did was I swapped out Twisting Path for Consuming Trap, which does more damage, but only to a single target, but it also gives me a ton of life, stamina, and magicka back every time that target dies. So this increased my single target damage, bosses died faster, my sustain was improved, and I was really happy with the change to Consuming Trap here. The fifth ability on the back bar is Dark Shade. Dark Shade is nice because it costs magicka, and that's great great for our sustain. The more magicka costing abilities that we can actually make do a ton of damage, the better. There are a lot of magicka abilities that won't scale well with stamina, but this one scales off of your highest offensive stats. So even though it costs mag, it's scaling off of our weapon damage, which means it does a ton of damage despite costing mag, and it's great for our sustain. This guy does single target damage, that's nice, and every once in a while he does a 360 doing AoE damage as well. So he's good single target, he's great AoE, and a fantastic ability to add to our back bar. As for the back bar ultimate, we're gonna slot incapacitating strike again, primarily for the passives that it provides. We don't really use the ultimate back here. We're gonna use the ultimate while we're on the front bar because the front bar deals more damage. But you know, we're getting the Reeve, which is gonna restore magic and stamina every time we light attack, and we're also getting the extra crit chance due to the passives. Speaking of passives, let's jump into our passives. The passives will really help you understand the class and why we choose the skills we choose and what kind of decisions we make in combat to maximize these passives. The passives that ZOS has put on every class are really what determines how that class is played. So the sooner you start playing around your class's strengths, aka its passives, you're really gonna see an increase in performance on your character. So let's talk about those passives and what they do. The first passive is Master Assassin. This is gonna increase our penetration, which is perfect. We need that. This is gonna help us do more damage. Executioner. When an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged by us, we restore 1000 magicka and stamina. Perfect. This is great for our sustain. So when something's about to die, make sure you've touched it recently to get your resources back. And when you need resources, make sure to kill something. It helps. Pressure points. Increase our critical for every ability in the assassin line that's slotted. We've got 2, so we're getting 876. You can get this up to 3 if you decide to go with Killer's Blade instead of Whirling Blades for a little higher single target damage, but less AoE. Hemorrhage increases our critical damage by 10% and increases our critical chance for 20 seconds whenever we crit. We're going to be critting constantly, so we're pretty much always going to have this critical buff and increased critical damage. This is one of the reasons it's so important to have a lot of crit chance on a build like this. And we do. We have tons of crit chance. Shadow. In the Shadow line, we're going to take Refreshing Shadows. This is going to increase our sustain by 15%. We're going to take Shadow Barrier. This is the one that's giving us major resolve every time we cast Surprise Attack. This is why we're using Surprise Attack, because it's going to give us 100% uptime on major resolve, which means when something hits us, we take a lot less damage. Dark Vigor increases our max health by 3% for each ability slotted. From this line, we've got 1 ability slotted, so we get 3% extra health. And then there's Dark Veil. Increase the duration of our non-invisibility based shadow abilities by 2 seconds. So our Dark Shade here is going to last 2 seconds longer, and if you're using Twisting Path, so will that. We're going to grab Catalyst out of the Siphoning line. This is going to give us 20 ultimate. Nearly 1/3 of what our ultimate costs is obtained every time we drink a potion. So chug your potions on cooldown. It's very important for your sustain, your damage, and for getting your ultimate sooner. And we're not using any siphoning abilities, so we're going to ignore the final 3 passives. As for our weapon, we're going to be using dual wield. So we're going to grab all of the dual wield passives. This is going to increase our damage, our penetration, our sustain, right? All of that is happening in here. If you look at Twin Blade and Blunt here, this is going to explain why we chose 1 dagger and 1 mace. As it explains, every dagger we use is going to increase our critical rating by 812, and every mace we use is going to increase our penetration by 1650. So we're getting extra crit and extra penetration. 2 things a Stam 2 needs right now. In the bow line, we're going to take all of the passives. This is going to increase our sustain, our damage, and also it's going to give us move speed when we roll dodge with the bow out. We're going to be wearing all medium armor, so make sure to grab all the medium armor passives. Make sure you grab all of your Undaunted passives for increased resources and sustain. Make sure you grab the first passive Under Assault for increased move speed while you're on a mount. 30% increased move speed. You will notice the difference immediately once you unlock this passive, but only put 1 point into it. You do not need 2 points into this. It's only for PvP. Grab all of your racial passives, and then under alchemy, make sure you get medicinal use level 3. This is going to make your potions last as long as the cooldown so that you can have 100% uptime on that 20% increased weapon damage, increased crit chance, and improved sustain that you get from your potion. Okay, now let's talk about our rotation. We're going to pre-buff with our Relentless Focus and our Dark Shade. Then we're going to start laying down our dots, our Endless Hail, our Caltrops, and our Consuming Trap. Then we're going to go to the front bar and activate our 2 dots up here, Deadly Cloak and Blood Craze. Now it's time to use our spammable Surprise Attack. Go ahead and use Surprise Attack until you see a dot falling off, and then reapply it. Every 5th or 6th light attack, make sure to come over here and hit your Relentless Focus until the enemy's at 25%. Then you're not going to activate this anymore. You're going to leave it at 5 stacks so that you can focus on your Execute. And that 5 stacks is going to give you 10% crit damage, which is going to make your Execute do 10% more crit damage. Use your ultimate as often as you can, and always try to follow it up with a Relentless Focus so that this big burst of damage gets increased by 20% because of the ultimate. And that's all there is to the rotation. It's very much like every class's rotation in this game. You pre-buff, you lay down your dots, and then you go into your spammable until one of the dots falls off, and then you stop your spammable for a moment to reapply the dot or dots that fell off, and then you go back to your spammable. Once one thing that's important is that you never go to the back bar to apply more than 2 dots at a time. So when you go back to the back bar, because something fell off, make sure you only cast 2 at most before going back to the front bar to light attack again. Since we're wearing Zogvin on the front bar, we don't want to go back to the back bar for more than a couple attacks because we'll lose our Zogvin stacks. And we don't want to lose our Zogvin stacks. They're giving us a ton of crit damage and minor force. So you can go back, apply a couple of dots, then come back, do a light attack and an ability. And then if you need to apply more, then go back and apply more on the back bar and then come back, but never more than 2 skills on the back bar in a row. And this applies anytime you're front barring any set like Relican, Zogvin. If you're front barring that set, you never want to do more than 2 skills at a time on the back bar because you risk dropping your stacks. If we look at Relican here, it says you get stacks that last 5 seconds. And if you look at Zogvin, you get stacks that last 5 seconds. So if you never go back to the back bar for more than 2 skills, you're never going to drop your stacks. If you go 3 or 4 skills, you're definitely going to drop your stacks once in a while. All right, as for the champion points, Zos has modified them once again. They're making it easier to hit max power. They're bringing the max power down from 2200 to around 1650. So we're going to be hitting max power a lot sooner, which means we have to grind a lot less. This is great for everybody that's not already 2200 CP. They've also made it easier to get some damage mitigation. Preparation now costs fewer points and simultaneously reduces damage more than it used to. It's gone up from 8 to 10% and it's gone down from 40 points needed to 20 points needed. So you're getting a lot more damage mitigation a lot easier now. So feel free to deviate from my recommended champion point path to obtain preparation sooner than later if your character is feeling a little bit squishy and you wish you had more damage reduction. 10% damage mitigation is a lot and it will make a difference. However, for this build, I am going to prioritize damage quite a bit. I will be getting preparation earlier than I used to because of how accessible it is and how impactful it is, but it is still going to be quite a ways off from the beginning of your character. All right, we're going to start with 20 points into precision, 50 points into fighting finesse, and then be sure to slot fighting finesse. Then we're going to go into the elbow and we're going to put 20 points into piercing. Then we're going to back out. We're going to put 50 points into deadly aim, 50 points into master at arms, and 50 points into thaumaturge. Make sure you slot all 3 of those. They are all slottables. Then we're going to put 20 points into tireless discipline. Then we're going to go into the chest. We're going to put 10 points into quick recovery, 20 points into preparation. We're going to go back out, go into the elbow again. We're going to put 20 points into battle mastery, 30 points into mighty, and then another 20 to top off battle mastery. We'll go back out and we'll go back into the chest, and we're going to get the rest of our damage mitigation by topping off elemental aegis and hardy. For the champion points beyond this point, be sure to check out the written guide linked in the description below. Next, let's talk about the red tree. We're going to start off by putting 50 points into boundless vitality and 50 points into rejuvenation. These are both slottables, so make sure you slot them. And remember, after you slot these slottables, you also have to hit the confirm button or else you're not getting credit for them. So make sure after you're done putting your points in that you do hit the confirm button at the bottom, or else everything you do doesn't count yet. Then we're going to go here to tumbling and put 15 points in. Then we're going to put 10 points into mystic tenacity, 20 points into hero's vigor, and 50 points into bloody renewal. Make sure to slot bloody renewal as it is a slottable. Then we're going to go back over here to ironclad, put 50 points into that and slot it as well. Then we're going to top off tumbling and we're going to top off defiance. Then we're going to go over to this side, put 8 points into hasty, fill up tireless guardian, fill up fortification, fill up hasty now, and then fill up sprinter. For where to put your points beyond this point, be sure to check out the written guide linked in the description below. Last but not least, the green tree. The green tree is a tree that is meant to not be min-maxed. There's no additional power to be found here. There's no wrong or right choice. Basically, you're going to want to invest in the things that apply to what you're doing. This side over here on the left is thieving. This side over here is fishing. This is potion and food efficiency. And then you in the chest area here, you have nodes and treasure chests and gear related things like disassembly. Basically, pick the things that seem like they're going to be the most useful for you and choose those passives. But don't forget to slot them if they're slottables. I'm going to let you choose where to put these points. However, if you want to know which ones I usually grab, I'll put that in the written guide linked in the description below. All right, guys, and that's all there is to the solo Stamina Nightblade. I'm so glad you guys have loved this build as much as you have. I have fallen in love with it as well. I had a blast taking it through vateshraan again, and I'm so happy to see that it's still continuing to get stronger. Every patch I find a way to improve this build when it's already felt so good in the past. I hope you enjoy the changes, and if you're still running the old gear, that's okay. It's still going to perform great. We've taken advantage of the changes that are coming in Blackwood, the changes that are buffing Ring of the Pale Order, the changes that are buffing Caltrops. We're ready to go. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe so that you get alerted to more of my ESO content and so that YouTube knows to show it to more people. If you ever want to hang out with someone else who loves ESO, consider swinging by my Twitch stream over at twitch.tv/luckyghost. And finally, I'd like to thank my YouTube members for supporting the channel by becoming members. To find out how to become a member of this channel and what the perks are, click the join button below. I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video.